Hi guys, welcome back. So today is the conclusion video for my Arteza and my basic range of Artiste, however you want to pronounce it. And basically I'm just going to show you the final products. Overall, if you just want to know straight away, I would recommend Arteza, but I feel like it's more of an add-on rather than dominance of products. And I can only obviously go off the set that I used. Yes, the set was metallic, but the general idea is that with acrylic pour or fluid pour, you'll be able to use any sort of acrylic paints to be able to make fluid art. And the range of paints that we got, so this is just a couple of examples. These are metallic. They are great, they are beautiful, but when they use them all together, you get the same effect. And that for me could be, that for you could be great if that's what you want to go for. However, I prefer my acrylic pours to be textured, have different mark making areas, as well as a couple of different features that make it interesting. So the first pour that I did, I actually re-poured on top of because I didn't realise, because it was the first pour, my ratio was slightly off, so I actually put in too much paint. So at the very start I normally do about 60% paint, 30% PVA glue and the rest water, give or take the PVA glueness, and I thought it was fine. The mixture seemed honey enough, like the right consistency, but only afterwards when it started to dry I realised I had used way too much paint. So the ratio was more towards 50% paint, 40% PVA glue and some water, and that made it a lot more, I think the consistency is like honey. And I saw so much more of a difference, not only in the amount of paint that I use, because obviously you're using less, the vibrancy of the colours and the ability for it to move. I do want to say the 50% acrylic paint does alter between 40 to 50 depending on the colour. The basic range, which I only actually got 3 of. Well, originally I wasn't going to compare them both, but these are actually the same price. The Arteza set, but you buy these individually rather than as a set, and these only equate to £1.50, whereas the other ones also equate to £1.50, but I did get the set on offer. However, these are very well pigmented and they go a lot further than the acrylic paints are. You do have to use a little bit more paint compared to the Arteza, but that's because they are high quality. But these are, not to say that these are not high quality, they are very good, they're very pigmented and they do stand out. My first acrylic pour, I got the ratios completely wrong, so I'm going to move on to the second one, which is this one. As you can see, it's very metallic and got some lovely little mark making bits here, like those cells are gorgeous, and you've got a bit of separation up there, which is lovely. You can see that it has muddied a little bit, and this was using all of the acrylic paints as well, it wasn't just a small selection. And there is obviously some good bits and then some bad bits, but I feel like it's very flat, and that for me is just not good enough. So not to say this is a horrible pour, but I feel like this is one of those pours I'm probably going to have to go back on top of because it's just not what I wanted, which is fine. With acrylic pouring it happens a lot. It's very, very rare that you do one pour and it's perfect and that's the final piece, whereas normally with some acrylic pours it can take 2 or 3 times before you get there. I've even actually got a canvas that's about an A3 size canvas that I've been using for acrylic pouring for years, and I still haven't got it right because it's such a massive canvas. It's dead hard to get the composition right. So very metallic, and I did use most of the colours. I think I left a couple out, I can't quite remember, but I did use a variety of the colours with the TTS as the background. The surface of it feels lovely. It doesn't feel weird compared to the TTS because that feels a bit more drying. But as you can see, some of the pigments have stayed and some have just gone. So on top of the first one, I did an acrylic pour. I did mix in the TTS white paint just to give it a bit more of a oomph. This does actually contain some of the original pour, so this section up here is the original pour. You can see the colours have worked really well, but you can also see how thick it was, especially up here. You can see how thick it is, but it was at the point where that had completely dried, whereas the rest of it wasn't. So I just scraped it off and then just started again. Because this has got 2 different types of acrylic paint in it, you can see the difference. So there's bits of metallic in there, whereas the white goes to the background, and the metallic bits just brings it forward, and it also created this lovely texture. Even though that was part of the original pour, it still lovely, and it creates this effect down here. It's just where the paint separates because it's two different consistencies, because if you use acrylic paint that needs more water or more PVA glue comparing to a different acrylic paint which needs, let's say, less PVA glue and more water, you're going to get that natural separation, which is what I love and I strive to go towards, because I find the textures are way more interesting than some of the acrylic pours. As a dirty pour, it works fine as well. These colours that are still here are the ones I used for the first pour, so it wasn't wasted at all. And because a dirty pour away for a couple of days, other than that, it was absolutely fine and it was great. It was just so nice to be able to rely on the fact that I can still use these paints as a dirty pour if in doubt it turns out the worst case scenario. Last but no means least is this acrylic pour. Now this is the one where I combined the much more budget versions of the acrylic paints with the Arteza, and I did use the TTS just for the white background to allow it to slip on and off the canvas, but you can definitely tell the difference in quality, and this is what I mean by the pigments are so much brighter and better, and it does create this lovely texture in between it because of the separation. For this, it means even though the budget ones do fade a bit more, you can see the colour and pigments have changed a little bit, and because this bit was much more concentrated, it's going to be better pigment, but the combination of the two works. So I feel like not sticking to one set of brand would actually work great. It would work if you want a clear, crisp, flip cup tree ring pour, but that for me is not what I'm going for. I'm going for these lovely textures, the contrast, like this lovely black line I've got here, which was part of the original pour. It stayed on the canvas, and that juxtaposition of and contrast between, you know, the metallic colours and then the budget friendly colours and then onto the TTS, it's just a lovely contrast between them, and I really do think both sets are worthy of buying, but I do feel like they're not a main I want to say subscription, not the main product. I feel like they're much more of an add-on onto your primary acrylic paints. So like these will be my secondary and third colours I use with my TTS acrylic paints, because I know that they provide the colours that I'm not able to get from my TTS acrylic paints, if that makes any sense at all. But yeah, that's it. Basically, overall, go out and buy some Arteza paints and maybe some budget-friendly paints as well. And if you can get in a set where it averages out about £1.50 per pot, then you're winning, aren't you? I'm not going to leave this here. I'm actually wanting to do an infinity pour on top of this. So that's what I'm going to go do. I'm going to go away and create it. And I hope you enjoyed this conclusion with a final infinity pour using all three paints. So the two first impressions and my TTS acrylic paints. So enjoy.